But a trial begins today. And then we're going to get to the irony of the trial. Opening arguments. Opening arguments for which, for anybody who watched the Rittenhouse trial, for anybody who watched, what was the other one? Maybe it was the Jones, I forget which. But I remember in Rittenhouse definitively. Opening statements are a time for attorneys to make statements which are not evidence. They're not in evidence yet because no evidence has been adduced. They're just statements of what they're going to prove. Let's hear what the opening arguments were in the Oath Keepers trial. This guy's name, I forget his name now. Oh, come on. Stuart Rhodes. Oath Keeper trial begins in highest profile January 6th case to date. The charges of seditious conspiracy. It sounds so dirty. If there's like a romance novel called Seditious Conspiracy with Fabio on the cover. Seditious conspiracy. It will be litigated over the next 6 to 8 weeks. I did an episode on the Oath Keepers because I had never heard of them until this entire... Sorry, I'm shaking my camera. I had never heard of the Oath Keepers until this started. Rhodes is a former attorney, former military veteran. Leaders of the far-right Oath Keepers. This term is just getting thrown around so much now. Bolsonaro in Brazil, far-right. Pierre Poilievre, far-right. Everyone's far-right. Everyone's far-right. It means nothing. And now I don't know what it means, even in context where it might have meant something in the beginning. But I don't... Now when I see someone calling the Oath Keepers far-right, I don't think they're far-right, and I don't know anything about them. I mean, I know more about them now. Still questionable, but just call everybody far-right. I was called far-right. Some dude on Rumble's calling me a liberal. I was called far-right by the liberal media. So now when someone else calls someone else far-right, I think, hey, maybe the Oath Keepers are just as reasonable and rational as I am. I don't know. We've both been called far-right. I know that I'm a good person. Sorry. Rant over. Leaders of the far-right Oath Keepers sought to end the country's history of peaceful transitions of power in order to keep Donald Trump in office. Prosecutors contended. I mean, is this Politico? Okay. They sought to prevent the peaceful transition of power for the first time in the country's history. They sought to end it. Prosecutors contended on Monday, opening the most significant trial yet to emerge from the January 6th attack on the Capitol. They concocted a plan for an armed rebellion to shatter a bedrock of American democracy, said Assistant U.S. Attorney Jeffrey Nessler. Hold on, I'm going to copy this because I want to see who appointed this individual. During opening arguments, they concocted a plan for an armed rebellion. What's the word I'm looking for? Bookshelf. No, bookshelf. Bookmark that. Screen grab that in your head. Mental screen grab. They concocted a plan for an armed rebellion to shatter a bedrock of American democracy, said the Assistant U.S. Attorney. The remarks to a jury were the first in the seditious conspiracy case being brought against 5 Oath Keeper leaders, and they underscore both the stakes and the highly charged nature of the trial to come. Prosecutors say the group's founder, Yale law-educated Stuart Rhodes, developed a detailed plan to keep Trump in power, including by violent force if necessary. Bear all this in mind when you get to the kicker. We'll just take a little sip. And the group set up stockpiles of weapons just outside Washington, D.C. to prepare for that possibility. They stockpiled the weapons outside of the area where they were supposed to have the armed insurrection. They set up a stockpile of weapons outside of D.C. to prepare for that possibility. And when they went to D.C. for the, what was it? How did they describe it? To overthrow the government by force for the first time in the nation's history, a rebellion, they didn't bring any weapons with them. Rhodes and 4 alleged co-conspirators are fighting a charge of seditious conspiracy, the gravest allegation leveled against any of the hundreds of January 6 defendants charged in the nearly 2 years since the riot. Prosecutors said Rhodes' plan involved a large network of co-conspirators. Too many to name. How many of them were? How many of them were FBI agents or or informants? Just, I mean, if Whitmer has taught us anything, that's a question I would be asking. Too many to put, but that Rhodes and his 4 co-defendants were the leaders of the effort. Rhodes, along with Florida Oath Keeper Kelly Meggs, as well as group members Jessica Watson, Kenneth Harrelson, Thomas Caldwell, assembled teams of dozens of Oath Keepers from around the country to descend on Washington. Prosecutors say they carefully honed a plan to disrupt the transfer. Oh, I thought to disrupt. It went from violent overthrow to disrupt the transfer of power, and used the weeks between Election Day and January 6th to surreptitiously advance their plans using encrypted communications and face-to-face meetings. That sounds so scary. It went from violent insurrection to violent armed. Overthrow the government, first time in the nation's history, disrupt the peaceful transfer of power, the bedrock of American democracy, to disrupt. In 3 paragraphs. Amazing. At least one of those recordings was recorded by a still anonymous Rhodes ally who Nestler said had become alarmed by the developing plans. Where is the part? Hold on, let me just come on. Where's the? Here we go. Prosecutors say dozens of Oath Keepers led by Rhodes stockpiled some of their firearms at a Virginia hotel and prepared to lay siege to the Capitol to prevent the transfer of power. It's an amazing thing. And it's something I've learned now. In a country that has a Second Amendment and where people, they have to be careful as to where they transport their firearms, whether or not you're allowed. But in a country that has the Second Amendment and a strong Second Amendment culture, I don't know what the difference is between, what's the word I'm looking for? Transporting firearms and stockpiling firearms. The idea here, the prosecution is going to set it out. It was a violent insurrection they planned. They were stockpiling firearms at a location away from the area where this armed insurrection plan was supposed to go down. I've got questions. Excuse me, prosecutor. How was that? How is that supposed to go down exactly? We're going to insurrect the hell out of this place in Capitol Hill. Just got to go back to our hotel, go through the traffic, load up our van, come back. God damn, guys, we had a plan. Why didn't we just bring them with us when we came down the first time if this was our plan? I'm sure the prosecution is going to explain it all. It's classic idiocy. Hold on, let me screen grab some of the Rumble rants. Boom. And boom. Okay. That's the plan. That was the plan. It was supposed to be, we're stockpiling weapons. We're just going to leave them at the hotel while we descend on the Capitol to violently insurrect and prevent the transfer of power. Yeah, makes sense. Prosecutors say the group's founder, Yale educated Stuart Rhodes, developed. Okay, no, hold on. We were there. The Oath Keepers' plan to argue everything they did was legal. Members of the group say they were primarily in Washington to serve as security details for pro-Trump VIPs like Roger Stone, who were speaking at rallies on January 5 and 6 to protest Trump's defeat. Their decision to descend on the Capitol amid a pro-Trump mob that had already breached the building was not a carefully crafted plan, they say. The firearms they brought were lawfully possessed and never brought into D.C., where strict gun laws would have prohibited them. That sounds like a very plausible defense. Whether or not they committed other felonies while they were down there, I don't know, assaulting police, I don't know. I'm very skeptical when a prosecutor says they were stockpiling weapons at a hotel for a plan that involved a violent overthrow of the government, but they didn't bring the weapons that they had at the hotel to the very area where this alleged overthrowing of the government was supposed to take place. I got questions. They're in D.C., however. I don't think the jury members are going to have those questions. Let's see this. Notably, Rhodes and his allies say they had been girding for the possibility that Trump would invoke the Insurrection Act as part of the bid to remain in power, a decision they contend could have permitted them to act as a government-sanctioned militia. This interpretation of the law, they say, further proves that their actions fell short of seditious conspiracy. Nestler referenced Rhodes' belief about Trump's potential invocation of the Insurrection Act and said that the 5 defendants grew increasingly desperate on January 6th. As January 6th approached and Trump had not taken the actions they wanted. They grew so desperate, they went down to the insurrection unarmed, for an armed insurrection. In many ways, Trump will be at the center of this trial. No crap. That's what this trial is all about, people. Trump's going to be at the center of it, and these people have about as much chance of getting a fair trial in D.C. as a snowball has in surviving a summer in Florida. Prosecutors who have already secured seditious conspiracy guilty pleas from Oath Keepers Joshua James, Brian Ulrich, and William Todd Wilson indicated that Rhodes attempted to contact Trump via an as yet unidentified intermediary among the chaos. There's no evidence it was successful. Okay, I hear a dog making some noise in the background. Prosecutors intend to lay out the case of the Oath Keepers, exchanged messages, and attended virtual meetings in advance of January 6th. What is this? Are people not allowed meeting anymore? In advance of January 6th, indicating their intent to mount a violent effort to prevent Congress from certifying Biden's victory. Except they just showed up to that event without the arms that they were stockpiling in a hotel. As we see, there's a concept in law called the theory of the case. In French, it's la théorie de la cause. This theory of the case has some holes in it to me, but we'll see what the evidence bears out. But the opening argument that this was a violent, seditious conspiracy to overthrow the government, shatter the bedrock of the democracy, the democratic republic that is America. They just left all of their apparently lawfully procured firearms at the hotel because of DC's strict gun laws. Il me semble qu'il y a quelque chose qui manque de votre théorie de la cause. Something is missing from your theory of the case. Several other members of the Oath Keepers are facing felony obstruction charges in a separate case, and the attorney who advised members of the group, Kelly Sorrell, was also recently charged for her role in January 6. Charging the lawyers. And they're accusing other people of attacking the bedrock of American society.